Okay, we're still only about halfway to our participants, but hopefully they'll all end up joining. And the great thing is that we'll record this, so if they did miss it, because who knows, kids at home, distractions and all of the above, they can catch it later. So hopefully everybody can hear and see the screen okay. We're going to get started just now. Okay. Hello, everybody. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Ross, and I'm the Member Relations Manager for the Ontario Co-operative Association. Our mission is to support, develop, educate, and advocate on behalf of Ontario's 1,500 cooperatives. And we are continuing to support our members and the broader co-op community today through these challenging times by offering a series of informative webinars. Today we'll be focusing on human resources impacts that you and your business have had because of COVID-19. And as I'm sure you are aware, COVID-19 regulations and policies are constantly in flux, but we're going to do our best here, and our presenters are going to do our best to give the most up-to-date information. Our presenters today are both from Flow Office Wisdom, a B Corporation and social enterprise offering a full suite of administrative services, including project management, bookkeeping, finances, human resources, website design, communications, and much more. They are a value-based team that believes in the strong connection between people, business, and community. So Crystal, our first presenter, is a partner and chief buzz builder at Flow Office Wisdom for the past 7 years. She leads culture, communications, and HR for the company and serves clients from various industries in those areas as well. She is currently working from home, like most of us are, in Guelph with 2 kids and leading the team of 10. We will also be joined by Lisa Maslov, who is a CHRP and workplace whisperer at Flow. She provides both bookkeeping and HR support to clients and has been part of the team for 4 years. Just a few housekeeping things. Let me skip here. Your microphones should be muted, and if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box to me, Jennifer, and I will administer those and ask them out loud to our presenters. There will be a pause between each section of the presentation today for questions, and then there'll be more time at the end if you have any extras, so please feel free to type in your questions as you go. And the webinar is being recorded, so it will be available afterwards on our website. So I believe, Crystal, you're up first. And actually, let me present, allow them to present here. Hold on 1 second. There we go. So Lisa should have presenting capabilities now. And hopefully Crystal can.
All right. So, hello everybody. I hope that I'm clear vocally here for you. Thanks for joining in today. We are really excited to get the opportunity to talk with you all today. This is definitely uncharted territory for everyone, business owners and employees alike. Not only the initial close down, but now the new task of reopening in a way that is safe and economically feasible. What we believe to be the most important through all of this is the desire and the ability for employers and employees to work together, be pragmatic, and be conscious of one another's needs. So I am Crystal, as Jennifer introduced. I'll be working through the health and safety section of our presentation, and then Lisa will take over afterwards for her section, and I won't spoil that for you. So health and safety, some of the biggest concerns that we're looking at right now. So let's dive in there. So what is it exactly that's happening right now? So whether you are an employee or an employer, our guess is that there are 3 types of folks that you are interacting with right now. There will be folks that are unsure about coming back to work for health and safety reasons, folks who don't have access to childcare and therefore are a bit hesitant about this back to work deal. And then you might also have employees and colleagues that are just really happy to get back to work. And each of these groups of people is going to come with its own sets of challenges and gifts for sure. Not going to talk too much about the employees that are happy to get back to work, because for the most part, they're going to be your easy ones. The one thing I will point out there is just to make sure that the eagerness to get back to work does not take precedence over the safety and training on policies and procedures that's necessary for moving forward. So the first group of people that we've mentioned there is those who are a bit hesitant as a result of concerns over health and safety. So let's chat about that. By law, employers have a responsibility to keep their employees and workplaces safe. This isn't new, it's always been the case, but understandably, it's more front of mind in the current workplace environment. Communicating, leading by example, and training are the key elements to make sure your employees feel safe as they make this return to work. Setting out on a firm foundation is going to reduce concerns from employees about safety. So clearly laying out your new policies, reviewing previous health and safety measures that were in place will be essential, as well as providing sufficient training to all of your staff on how the workplace will operate now. So some of you have asked about the rights that employees have in returning to work if they deem it unsafe, which is a great question. All employees have always had the right to refuse in cases where they feel that their work environment is unsafe. And this isn't different now. The way that this happens is a specific claim must be made to management, who must be then given the opportunity to address the issue. The employer or management must investigate the situation in the presence of that worker who has submitted the complaint. And it is definitely in the employer's best interest to do this as quickly as possible, so as to reduce the impact on efficiency and productivity, as well as morale within the team. If the issue is able to be resolved at that stage, that's great. The employee can get back to work. But if the employee is not satisfied that the unsafe situation has been rectified, then the investigation goes up a level and is brought to the Ministry of Labor. During the first portion of that investigation, where it's just the employer and the worker together, the employee is entitled to payment, but in that second section, there are specifications around that. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have leveled up, you'll need to look into the specifics of your situation in regards to that. So some main tips from us for employers for this section. Number one, as we mentioned, is to communicate. You want to do this as early, as frequently, and as clearly as possible. The fewer questions your employees have to ask you about what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be doing it, the better. You also want to make sure that you're creating accessible channels for employees to share their concerns. If they don't know who to talk to about something or how to appropriately present something, that's where you're going to tend to run into troubles, especially with the kind of heightened stress and tension of this re-entry into the workplace. You also want to make sure that you're listening openly to employee concerns. So the feelings that they have and the thoughts about safety, making sure that they feel like those are validated and that you're hearing them is really going to be helpful for maintaining your relationship and helping things go smoothly. And then, of course, following all of the Ministry of Health and Public Health guidelines is absolutely crucial in this stage. As far as employees go, our main tips for you are to familiarize yourself with the Ministry of Health and Public Health guidelines. If you know what these are, there are going to be very few surprises for you as you enter back into work. and you're going to be a really valuable member of the team and able to contribute well that way. And then secondly, if you believe your work to be unsafe and you would like to exercise your right to refuse, you need to follow the proper steps. That is the way that it is going to get resolved. And if you don't know what those steps are, find your supervisor or your manager and advise them that that is something that you need to be made aware of. Okay, do we have any questions so far on this first section?
It's Jennifer here. I just wanted to pop in and say that I think because I passed the presentation over to Lisa, that she might be the one actually receiving the questions if there are any that come in, because it looks like from my point of view, I can't chat with anyone other than her. So if anybody's listening and wants to chat or ask questions, they can do so. I think believe directly to Lisa. But there might not be any questions yet.
Okay. We will move on from here then. And Lisa, if you find any questions, just save them up for the next question slide and we'll cover them both at that point. All right, so we are going to look now at the plan to reopen. So the key that we want to get across here is that you do not need to rush back. Just because you are allowed to reopen, and it might feel like getting the income flowing again is what needs to happen. That's not necessarily the best thing to do without proper preparation. And so that being said, training is key. So you need to make sure that your employees know who to contact if they have a safety concern. Is it their manager? Is there a dedicated COVID team or specific team member that is specialized in this area right now? And you want to keep on top of public health advice, which may change. Those of you who were watching last week probably witnessed it change, I think, 3 times between the course of Wednesday and Friday. So that's likely going to be a recurring thing that's happening. And so you want to keep on top of that, have someone assigned to do that. And specific industries and professions are held to different higher standards for operation on return, particularly health professionals and those with a direct line to the public or potential to have higher standards. So you want to make sure that you're keeping tabs on union governing bodies, regulatory colleges, that sort of thing, for any specific standards that you and your industry need to meet. You want to know the guidelines. There are guidelines for the province of Ontario, but there are no generalized mandatory requirements that are provincially reaching at this point in time. Do keep in mind that even if an action is not mandatory, an employee can still enact their right to refuse based on observing a neglect of the guideline and commonly understood public safety information. Some public health regions, Guelph, Wellington, Dufferin included, which is where we're based out of, have mandated that businesses must refuse entry to individuals not wearing a face covering. But this is not true of all regions, so check your local information. And you want to reduce risky tasks as much as possible. So doing things like requiring contactless payment, contactless delivery. Risky tasks at this point include anything where there is kind of face-to-face interaction. So think about all of the opportunities in your place of business that there are to reduce those interactions, and be creative about planning, and that's going to help you reopen safely. Okay, so You want to review your policies. So this sort of climate makes us all realize that maybe we don't have as much documented as we should or we would like to. So this is just a quick note to say that employees in compliance with pre-existing HR standards will have policies related to various types of job protected leaves, workplace safety, and anti-discrimination. There are no mandated policies in direct response to a pandemic required at this point, though clear compliance with the new infectious disease emergency leave is necessary. Best practices will involve a review of or creation of a sick leave policy, a work from home policy, and a pandemic policy. And again, these are all going to look different depending on what specific industry and sector you're in. Top tips for employers are to be creative when you're scheduling. This is part of reducing the risky interactions. Modified schedules, flex times, split shifts, that sort of thing. Those are going to help you manage that. You also want to take this opportunity to ensure that all of your policies and procedures are up to date and aligned with your values and mission. I know a lot of the clients that we work with have been thinking, oh, I wish I had this in place at the beginning. It would have made things so much easier. So thinking ahead and making sure you're prepared for the next unplanned thing that happens is a good thing to do right now. And also, third tip will be to assign someone to keep up on the guidelines. Whether it's yourself or a manager or an employee that's just really interested and up to date on these things, you want to know who it is within your team that is keeping up on all of the changes as far as like the virus status, employee screening measures that are required, any changes to what's allowed and not allowed as you reopen and with the public is really important. And then for employees, you want to familiarize yourself with policies and procedures so that you know what is expected of you, what you can expect from your employer, and how to do the things that they're asking you to do in a safe way. Want to make sure that you're complying with physical distancing and disinfection schedules. It can be really easy to start, as we get further into this, start taking shortcuts, but you want to make sure that you maintain compliance there. And if something is unclear, ask what you are to do and suggest documentation, because I'm sure you have heard in some way, shape, or form before, if it's unclear to you, it's likely unclear to somebody else. So asking for something to be documented will benefit yourself and the whole team in the long run. And working from home is a new thing that we're all learning how to deal with and how to do right now. And so it does require a little bit of planning. In a recent survey of HR professionals, 81% said that organizations they worked with were planning to retain or expand the remote working into a more permanent thing. It really does work well for some people and their jobs. There are some really important things to consider, though, if you are moving in this direction or if you're maintaining your work from home team for a while. You want to look at a team integration. One of the big downfalls to working from home is that separation between team members, and it gets a little bit harder to maintain relationships and keep that kind of feeling of camaraderie. So making sure that you have plans for how to integrate your work from home staff into the overall team is crucial. And kind of in line with that, it can have a significant impact on your workplace culture. So if you're used to all being able to sit down and have lunch together, and that's where you share about your day, your plans for the weekend, and that's how you have a sense of togetherness, that's not going to exist in a work from home space. So you need to really be intentional about planning for that and allowing your team the opportunity to engage with one another in a way that reflects the culture you're trying to create. More practically speaking, privacy and security can become an issue if you're in an industry where there's requirements around documentation being locked and protected in specific ways, password protected devices, specific internet networks that are safe or not safe based on your policy. That's all going to need to be reviewed and have some measures put in place depending on what makes sense for you, of course. And then expectations is key. A lot of what we hear from people who are working from home or who are employing people working from home is, you know, from the employee perspective, they tend to think like, oh, I wonder if my employer just thinks I'm goofing off and not getting anything done. How are they going to measure my productivity? I'm working so hard and they don't appreciate it. And then from employers, we do hear like, how do I know that they're actually doing anything? So make sure as an employer that you are making it clear to your employees what is expected of them, and as the employee that you are clear what your boundaries are and what you're expecting from your employer and what they can expect from you in return. This is a two-way street for sure. So as far as working from home goes, oh, sorry, I missed one thing. In that nice little pick box up there, you can read a little bit of what we had to say about leadership for work from home positions. If that is the situation you are in, it may be helpful. All right, now tips for employers on the working from home situation. Evaluate whether this situation of working from home is a viable option for your staff. Some of them may not think of it as a potential for long term, but it may be very good for them and for you. Also ensure that your expectations, like I said, are clearly laid out for employees so they know exactly what it is that they're to be doing and what they're accountable for. And make sure you're considering how you're going to maintain leadership in a remote work situation, because it becomes, you know, increasingly more important as you have that separation. And then from the employee standpoint, if you believe that working from home is an effective option, let it be known, because you know, conversely to the same tip for employers, they might not think that, they not even think of it as an option. So if it works for you, state your case for that. Make sure that you are clear on their expectations so that you're confident in knowing that you are doing what you're meant to be doing and you're meeting what they need from you. And if you're going to be working from home long term, we as a team who has worked from home for since our creation, it is in your best interest to set up a dedicated space and stick to a schedule. That those are the two main things that that are going to be indicative of your success in working from home long term. How are we doing for questions?
So I'm going to suggest that people use the chat function to send their questions to either Flow Office Wisdom or to Jennifer, so that I can keep the slides up here, you know, for recording purposes.
It's
So
Jennifer
people
here again. I'm not 100% sure that's people are able to do that. Me, because I'm not the host anymore, it looks like I only have the option to privately chat to you, Lisa.
Okay,
So,
well, let's go over here and have a look. Now everybody's going to see. So will these slides be sent? I believe the answer is yes, and that they'll be on the website. I saw you had a previous webinar about, you're welcome, about financial stuff. So these will go on the website, the slides, and I believe the recording.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So there's a couple other spots for questions as we go along. So feel free to throw up your questions in the chat box, even if it's about the earlier material, and we'll get to them. Let's check one more time. Okay.
All right, if there aren't any, then Lisa, it's over to you for workforce planning.
Thank you, Crystal. Hi, everybody. As Crystal and Jennifer were saying, I am a certified HR professional with Flow. So as you can imagine, a lot of my days these days are spent helping our clients with these very issues. And I'm really excited to hear from you as to what you're experiencing. So, I mean, we're really at a critical time right now in Ontario, with some of us have moved to phase 2, where we're reopening. Some of us not quite yet. We're also, as we look across our clients, for sure, and across the province, we're seeing a lot of different approaches. Like, some businesses are really, trying to get through the pandemic and return to more or less business as usual. But we're also seeing many businesses changing what they do and how they do it on a permanent basis. So work from home is for sure one of those aspects. But also selling online is something that, maybe businesses were toying with the idea, but now they're doing it out of necessity, and that's become a permanent change to their business. So a lot of differences in how people are handling this current situation. And in amongst all that, employers are trying to plan in this situation that is very, very fluid, as we all know. So recognizing that we're all in different places right now, I thought what we would do now is kind of take a step back and look at HR decisions from a supply and demand point of view, and hopefully everybody can see some relevance to where they are right now. So starting with the demand side, so like the demand for labor. In other words, who do you need? So again, lots of different starting points. Some employers may feel that they don't have enough work for their, and they've already laid off workers. Others are at the point of reopening and therefore rehiring. So how do you know how much you need, basically? Consumer demand obviously is a big key factor here, and we're figuring this out in real time, really. Like, are people feeling comfortable to go out and shop or go out to eat? Business confidence and consumer confidence, we're hearing mixed things, so it's kind of a wait and see situation right now. And then, as Crystal mentioned, there's also, of course, the need for physical distancing to continue at your workplace. So putting all these things together, how many people do you need? Who do you need? Where do you need them? Is it on site? Is it at home? So what we're encouraging our clients to do is to develop a couple different scenarios around different levels of demand and how many people they might need in each scenario, just to get an idea. So, I mean, and in addition to, direct production and that sort of thing, there are other reasons why you might want to hire or rehire people. So upskilling and cross-training, that's back on the previous slide. We're finding that a lot of, oh, I have the slide control. Okay, so right, as when it comes to training, we're finding that a lot of businesses are finding that now is a good time for training, right? How often do we hear, I want to do training, but I don't have time in my normal day-to-day. Well, now people are finding that they have time and they have the mental space for training. The other aspects have to do with, if you're planning a whole new delivery channel, like online selling or other big changes to your business, who is available to plan those changes and who is available to evaluate those changes. So those are other reasons why you might want to be hiring or rehiring people beyond the obvious type thing. And I noticed on social media that the Ontario Co-operative Association has a COVID fund that can be used for training or other pivot strategies. So that's a really great opportunity to put some of this in place. Okay, so the other side of that, of course, is the supply side. So who is available to work? Summer's always tricky from a scheduling point of view, and this summer promises to be extra tricky, let's put it that way. So there are a number of reasons why your employees might not be available to work in a given week or a given month going forward. The first is safety concerns, as Crystal addressed a few minutes ago. And keep in mind, there might be, I mean, people might be under a doctor's order not to come back to work, and these might be things that you didn't know about as an employer while everybody was working from home, but now are becoming more, now are coming to light, that sort of thing. So vacations is a topic that is top of mind for a lot of HR folks right now, and it really depends on your current situation. So some employers are worried that their employees might not sort of understand the vacation policy, or might be less willing to take vacations now that, you know, a lot of things are closed and travel is very cumbersome, to say the least. So there is the concern that this might create a financial liability, basically, if you have a lot of accrued vacation. So what this comes down to is, you know, what are your vacation policies? What are your procedures for people to book vacations? That sort of thing. And another key point that I think is worth mentioning, I mean, if you know that your employees are coming back, or have been working really hard, or having trouble with the balance between work and home, do what you can to make sure that when they take a vacation, it really is time off, especially if they are staying from home. I mean, vacations are good because they give people a mental break, right? So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that people do get that mental break. And then caregiving is probably the biggest question right now, and there, being cooperatives, there'll be some who know more about the childcare landscape than I do, but this is a really big question mark as to how much quality childcare and day camps will be available and when. So this is going to be a really big challenge for a lot of employees, and therefore employers as well. So I'll talk about in a minute that there is job protected leave for people who have childcare responsibilities. But the point I want to make here is that it's going to take some time for childcare to get back up where it was, for sure. And also, I mean, it's not just people with little kids. We know of employees who have older relatives that they might have taken out of long-term care for understandable reasons and are now caregiving in their home. So there's lots of reasons why caregiving might mean that somebody's not able to come back in the same capacity that they were. So as I mentioned, there are a couple new developments that have recently come into place in the province in this last few weeks. So one is the infectious disease emergency leave. So this is a recent change to the Employment Standards Act to basically add a new type of unpaid job protected leave. So just to back up a little bit as to the background. So basically, Government of Ontario brought this in because businesses who had laid off, you know, in March type thing, were reaching the 13-week mark, at which a temporary layoff could become a permanent layoff, or a permanent termination, I should say. So they, you know, this 13-week timeline was coming, and they knew that people weren't ready to rehire yet. So this is why this new type of unpaid job protected leave has been brought in, and it's retroactive back to March, I think. So the key things to note here is that this leave is tied to this timing of the declared emergency leave. So we know that in Ontario, the leave or declared emergency will go till June 30th at least. So therefore, this leave will be in place until, I guess that takes us to mid-August. So what does this mean for employers? So the key thing to be, so the mindset to have is to remember that this is like a job protected leave, like a parental leave or family responsibility leave. So be very, very careful about if you're considering terminating an employee who might be on this type of leave. At a minimum, don't rush. because you have a bit more time now to think about the situation. Definitely be aware of what the employment contract says with regards to termination and job protected leaves and that sort of thing. The second thing is that if an employee should come to you with a request to take this sort of leave, maybe because of a childcare situation, handle it like a family responsibility leave. So you can ask employees about options, like what have they done to try and find childcare, that sort of thing. And you can ask for some documentation, not a doctor's note necessarily, but maybe a letter from the daycare, that sort of thing. But I mean, like this and like many other situations that we've talked about so far, the key to remember is that what you're trying to do is find a solution. Find something that works for both the employer and employee, and talk it through, basically. So, and what this leave means for employees is that this is basically another option for you. If you need to self-isolate, or if you're looking after somebody who is sick, or if you really don't have access to childcare, this is another leave that you can request. So, like other employment standards leaves, you are expected to approach your employer, give notice, that sort of thing. Okay, another option or program that I wanted to talk about, and I think you might have heard about it in a previous webinar, is the wage subsidy, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which is a 75% wage subsidy for employers who can demonstrate that they've experienced a significant drop in revenue. And the whole idea behind this subsidy is to help people rehire. So we are certainly working with some of our clients to help them rehire and apply for the subsidy. It is flowing really quickly, like they are processing the applications quite quickly. That's been our experience anyway. So a lot of talk has been about, well, what happens when you rehire? Actually, a key thing I wanted to say about rehiring is the employees don't have to be on site. So you can rehire people for a certain number of hours, but they don't necessarily have to be working on site for that number of hours. So that is something that employers are not necessarily aware of. So when you are rehiring, if you're an employer, it's a good idea to document your decision criteria. So are you going by seniority? Are you going by department, or what skill you need, that sort of thing. And then back to Crystal's point earlier, if you're rehiring, make sure you're clear on expectations, because you might be rehiring somebody under different circumstances, different tasks, different environment. So be sure, as always, that everybody's clear on expectations. And we've provided a link down below, because employers are responsible for making sure that they're only applying for employees who are eligible. So there's a ton of information at that link. And then on the employee side, what we're hearing a lot of, and we know there's a lot of confusion about, if you get rehired and you've been on CERB or EI, what happens? And we heard, I think, about an hour ago that the federal government intends to extend CERB by another 8 weeks. The rules and the reporting might be a little different. We don't know yet. But just to say that this is a really fluid situation, and now we know that the CERB is going to be extended. So basically, the onus is on the employee to make sure that they are not getting any CERB if they're not eligible for it, basically. And this can happen because CERB is paid out in advance, but wages are paid retroactively. So it can honestly be confusing. Like, we're finding this with a lot of employees who want to do the right thing, of course, but genuinely are confused. So what we're suggesting is that employers be very clear about the date of rehire and the pay date and that sort of thing. And give your employees lots of information, lots of links. And when in doubt, phone CRA or phone Service Canada. They're there to answer your questions. And there's lots of phone numbers. There's multiple phone numbers. They're all in these links that we provided. Okay, the last thing I wanted to touch on is virtual hiring. You know, when you get back to that stage that you want to hire anew. So virtual hiring happens all the time. It's happened a lot before COVID, and will, I'm sure, continue to hire. So, you know, you can hire somebody without meeting them face to face. Just a couple of quick tips here. So it makes sense to match the screening and the interviewing formats to the job itself. So if it's a job with telephone customer service, maybe do some screening by phone, that sort of thing. Be aware of the candidate experience. So given that this is all virtual, make sure that your job posting, your process, your website reflects who you are as a company and kind of attracts the right people and gives an accurate picture of who you are as an employer. Don't forget onboarding. Even though you're not seeing the people, you still want to bring them in, make them feel part of your team. And then finally, considerations for remote workers. If you're hiring somebody brand new and they're going to be working remotely, you want to ask them to show that they have done this before, ideally more than the last 3 months, but that they have proven experience to work from home and be productive and ask questions and all that sort of thing. So that is a good thing to look out for now when you're hiring. Okay, so tips for employers. Basically understand your employees' availability. Don't assume that because somebody was available at a certain level or certain days before that they still will be now. It is really worth taking the time to check in with everybody individually and understand their availability going forward. You want to have a good sense of your supply and demand before you make permanent steps to terminate or rehire or whatever. And the big one here for employers is to explain your positions or explain your decisions in terms of business goals. So explain your why. I think employees really understand that if there are certain steps you have to take to keep the business afloat during this time, that informs your decisions. I think sometimes employers can be reticent to use that sort of language, but employees really appreciate that, I think. Tips for employees. Yeah, so let your manager know as far in advance as you can about your plans with respect to vacation. If you need to take a leave, it's in everybody's interest to let people know as early as possible. And bring solutions to your managers. If you need some sort of flexibility, everybody's situation is really unique, so you don't want to make somebody guess what you need. Bring some ideas of, this is the situation, this is how I think we can make it work, that sort of thing. And then also, when it comes to pivots and new business ideas, share your ideas with the team. If you're a frontline person, you know what your customers want, what their issues are, so you have a really great perspective that you should share with your team. Okay. Are there any questions? And can I find the questions?
I can always take back the presentation. It's Jennifer, if that's
Jennifer.
helpful for people to communicate the questions. If you're finished.
You know what? Maybe I'll just do a couple more slides, and then
Okay.
and then we can jump back.
Okay.
So this is just, a summary of what we've been saying all along. The communication really is key, and patience. It might take multiple conversations to get to the bottom of an issue, but that's okay. It's complicated. So it's okay to take time to work through all of these issues that we've just mentioned. And a key point that I really wanted to mention is about mental health at work. These are really challenging times for all of us, and it's in everybody's interest to look out for each other, for managers to look out for their teammates, and there's tons of free online training and resources out there. I've put a link here to one, but there's really a lot of resources out there for people who want to know how to help, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
And this here is just an opportunity, because this is an area that we've been working a lot in, and we've recognized, based on our work with our clients and whatnot, that the policies and the procedures around this are challenging and they're daunting. And so what we have created for people like yourselves is a package wherein we can take your policies and procedures from an HR perspective and review them and give you some guidelines and some assistance with getting those kind of up to date and in compliance and in a good situation for where you need to be to move forward well right now. And we're offering that at a discounted rate for you guys that are on the call today, and anybody that registered will have access to that too. And you can connect with us to discuss that further if you would like to. And then if we maybe transfer back to Jennifer, then she can field any questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, doing it. There you are.
Go. Okay. So can you see my screen again or no?
Yep.
Share. Can you see that? Can you see that last screen there? Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
there.
Okay. So let me see if I can. I'm still having trouble with seeing if there is any questions in the chat box. I do have a question though, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
I think everyone now can chat in the chat box to myself, and if there's any other questions, we can relay them. But my question is around the job protection leave, especially around like take a single mother that has been maybe working from home, but now their employer wants them to go back, but they don't have daycare space. Is that the best option for them, to kind of extend their leave and kind of cease working technically from home if their employer wants them to come back? Or are there other options?
I mean, I think it really does depend on the situation and as an employee, what you want. So if you have tried all the options that you can think of to get childcare, family members and whatnot, and you're still out of luck, that is something that you can ask for, and it would be unpaid by the employer, and then it would be up to the employee to apply for any benefits, CERB or EI or whatever it is. Right. So that is an option. I mean, it has a whole host of other issues, right? I mean, there's already evidence that as we're recovering, more men are going back to work than women. So there's a whole host of other issues. And I think if an employee has an idea, I mean, I don't know if it's like hiring babysitters or that sort of thing. I mean, be creative. Why not throw it out there as an option to find something? Yeah.
Okay, we have another question that came in. If an employee is requested to go back to work and are currently on EI, if they are not able to go back because of daycare, for example, can they remain on EI, or do they lose it because the employer is requesting them to?
Crystal looks like she wants to weigh in.
That's one of those fun, tricky situations where it is not necessarily an EI thing, but perhaps a CERB thing. So CERB is to help people who are not able to work because of the pandemic. And if you are not able to obtain childcare as a result of the pandemic, it is possible that that could be something that is available to you. And so that is something that's one of those more specific situations that we would definitely recommend you connecting with the CRA or Service Canada about to determine specifics around eligibility, especially as we're moving into this kind of new potential 8 weeks of CERB where they may have slightly different rules around eligibility for it.
And will those additional rules be posted somewhere? Like, do they just keep updating the site?
So those links that we sent, yeah, exactly. They keep updating the site. The links right now have lots of different scenarios. Like if you're a parent, if you're self-employed. So there's really a lot of information there. And to Crystal's point, it's kind of like two different decisions. So if you need that job protected leave, even if your employer's called you back and you said, I've done this and that, and I need to take leave, that's between you and the employer. And then separately, the benefits are there. They're separate, right? So in most cases, if you are eligible in one situation, you will be and for the benefits as well, but not necessarily, right? You have to apply separately for the benefits, but they're still there.
Okay. Are there any other questions that would like to come through? In the meantime, I will say that, as mentioned, both the slides, the presentation today, and also the full recording will be up on our website at ontario.coop/webinars. At the bottom of the presentation, you'll see the contact information there for Flow if you need to get in contact with them for some of your more specific needs. I'm not seeing any more questions come through, so I think we can end it there, but I would like to thank you both so much for presenting today. It was actually very informative, more than I expected to learn, so that's wonderful. And if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to pull them through me and I can pass them along, or you can contact them directly. And thank you very much for participating today, and we will sign off.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Jennifer.
everybody. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, have a good afternoon, everyone.
You too.